So, did you figure out which fruits or vegetables in your life have the same wild parents? Hopefully, you noticed these five groups. My favorite surprise from this is that even though oranges taste and look so different from lemons, which taste and look so different from grapefruits, when you look at them more carefully, suddenly you see lots of similar traits between them. Like when you cut them open, you can see, hey, wait a second, they all have fruit divided into sections like this. They also have a thick skin that can be peeled off by hand. You notice that here? And when we look at the other parts of these plants, we see even more in common. Like look at their leaves. You can hardly even tell them apart. Or their flowers, they all look so similar. We can include limes in this group too. Limes have these same traits as oranges, lemons, and grapefruits. So these four fruits, oranges, lemons, grapefruits, and limes, they're not even really different fruits. They're all just different varieties of the same fruit. Think of it this way. An orange is to a lemon as a red delicious apple is to a Granny Smith apple. Now that's crazy because Granny Smith apples and red delicious apples, at least you knew they're varieties of apple. I mean, they even have apple in their names. So then, what fruit are oranges, lemons, limes, and grapefruits varieties of then? Well, in the forests of Southeast Asia grows a wild fruit that looks like this. It smells like a lemon, and it has similar flowers and leaves to a lemon. We call this a citron or citrus fruit. Even if you've never seen one of these, you've probably heard that word before, citrus. Scientists think that oranges, lemons, limes, and grapefruits are just different varieties of some kind of original citrus fruit, which was probably something like a citron. So you'll sometimes hear all of these called the citrus fruits. That's why that name might be familiar. I think what's so surprising about the citrus varieties, unlike the apple varieties, is that we've used selection to make them all so different in color, in taste, in shape. I mean, think about just taste, right? Oranges are sweet, lemons and limes, they're sour, and grapefruits, they're kind of bitter. And yet they're all varieties of a single fruit, the citrus fruit. So once again, we see how by discovering some knowledge about how living things inherit their traits, we can use the process of selection to create new and different varieties of plants from what's originally found in the wild. Now, so far, we've just been talking about citrus fruit that you can find in your grocery store. But have we ever made other varieties of citrus, ones maybe you haven't heard of? Like, have we ever made a giant citrus, the way we made a giant pumpkin? Well, as far as I know, no one's made any giant citrus yet. But I do want to tell you about one last example, because it might be the weirdest fruit I've ever seen. I was walking around in a park in Southern California when I saw this. Do you see that thing? Right there, growing on the tree. I couldn't believe this was real. I was like, what? It's what I would expect a fruit to look like on some alien planet. What is this thing? Well, if I cut it open, it looks like this. It does not look familiar at all to me. Just looking at this picture, you might say something like, well, Doug, that might just be its own kind of fruit. I don't think this is a variety of one of the other fruits. But if you think that, you'd be wrong. And that's because what you really need is you need to be able to smell this thing. Wow, does it smell strong? It has to be the most intense citrus smell I've ever smelled in my life. It's like the smell of 1,000 lemons. That's right, this is a variety of citrus fruit. It's a fruit from Japan that's called Buddha's hand, partly because it looks like a bunch of fingers. Now, if it's a citrus variety, then why doesn't it have all those sections inside like other citrus fruits? Well, look at the inside of a citron. Remember that wild citrus fruit? It has sections too, but notice how it also has a really thick peel or skin. With a Buddha's hand fruit, instead of selecting it to have more fruit, plant growers actually selected it to have more peel. There's no fruit part at all to it, so you don't really eat Buddha's hand. Instead, people like to use it for its smell. They'll scrape little bits of it off and put it in their tea or soup, just for its nice, strong citrus smell. If you're lucky, sometimes, occasionally, you might be able to find a Buddha's hand citrus fruit in the grocery store. Next time your parents go to the grocery store, or if they ever go to a farmer's market, ask if you can come along. Spend some time hanging out in the fruit and vegetable section and see what incredible varieties of things you can find. One day, if you become a great plant grower or a plant scientist, you could make some new varieties of fruits too. maybe even the next biggest fruit in the world. Stay curious, and see you next mystery.